Welcome to Dejobnik, your command post for clarity and perspective.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining me. I'm Israeli Government Spokesperson Raquela Karamson, and this is March 28, day 174 of the October 7th war. 174 days on, our unwavering objectives remain. Number 1, bring our hostages home to their families. Number 2, bring the perpetrators of this horrific massacre to justice by achieving total victory. And number 3, ensure that Hamas has no refuge in Gaza and will never again be able to attack us from Gaza. I begin today with IDF fatalities since the start of the October 7th massacre, which unfortunately have risen to 597. That is up 1 since yesterday. The people of Israel grieve with the family of Staff Sergeant Nissim Kachlon, aged just 21, from Hadera. He fell in fighting in southern Gaza and is survived by his parents, 2 sisters, and a brother. The IDF and our entire nation share in his family's terrible grief. May his memory and the memories of all those fallen always be a blessing. And to all the families of those wounded, murdered, and violently taken hostage, please know that we hold your loved ones close to our hearts, and we will not rest until justice is served and this barbaric terror army is destroyed. Now, in the very sad passing of former US Senator and Vice Presidential nominee Joe Lieberman, the Prime Minister said, and I quote, "Sarah and I grieve with Hadassah and the entire Lieberman family on the passing of our beloved Joe. Joe was an exemplary public servant, an American patriot, and a matchless champion of the Jewish people and the Jewish state. He was also an extraordinarily kind and loyal personal friend. We will miss you greatly, Joe. May the Lieberman family be comforted among the mourners of Zion in Jerusalem." Moving on now to yesterday, Prime Minister Netanyahu hosted visiting US Senator Rick Scott in his office in Jerusalem. Thanking him for his visit and his unwavering support, the Prime Minister said, and I quote, "I thought the US decision in the Security Council was a very bad one. The worst part about it was that it encouraged Hamas to take a hard line and believe that international pressure will prevent Israel from freeing the hostages and destroying Hamas. My decision to not send a delegation to Washington in the wake of the resolution was a message to Hamas. Don't bet on this pressure. It's not going to work. I hope they got the message," end quote. Turning now to the IDF's ongoing operation to prevent harm to civilians, patients, medical teams, and medical equipment in the area of the Shifa hospital. Hamas terrorists have returned to Shifa to operate from there. And so far, 200 terrorists have been eliminated, 800 arrested, including in the last 24 hours, terrorists were firing from inside the ER unit. Let me repeat that. Terrorists fired from the ER unit at the Shifa hospital. The IDF have evacuated civilians, patients, medical teams to alternative safe medical facilities set up by the IDF so medical treatment could continue. There are still terrorists inside Shifa, which is why this operation is continuing. Turning now to the situation in the north of Israel, yesterday a barrage of 30 Hamas rockets hammered northern Israel, killing an Israeli citizen, a Druze Israeli citizen, in Kiryat Shmona. The Israeli Air Force and battalion commanders in the Northern Command have increased their war readiness and prolonged combat. Lessons from the Gaza combat are being adjusted for the challenges in the north. That means artillery, intelligence, engineering information, and communication technology. Commanding officer of the Northern Command, Major General Ori Gordon, said, "We are at war. We have been at war for almost half a year now, and it doesn't end with Hezbollah. We are operating against Al-Jamila al-Islami. In the past 24 hours, there have been very significant strikes against Hezbollah. Israel will push Hezbollah back significantly. We will restore calm to the region so our residents can return to their homes with a sense of security." I turn now to the latest from COGAT, which of course oversees the coordination and facilitation of humanitarian aid into Gaza. We are allowing as much aid as possible. We are positively flooding Gaza with aid. Yesterday, 274 trucks of humanitarian aid were inspected and transferred into Gaza, with 164 of those carrying food. 25 of those food trucks were transferred into northern Gaza. Additionally, 156 packages, each weighing 1 ton, were airdropped over Gaza. These are the numbers of aid facilitation on our side, the Israeli side, in just the last 24 hours. To the UN, I would say, we are doing our part daily. Please do your part to ensure the aid is not stolen and reaches the innocent civilians who need it most. Also in the last 24 hours, a brand new field hospital with the capacity of 66 beds and a staff of 200 to provide comprehensive care opened in Gaza. This marks the 7th field hospital we have facilitated. This hospital will be run by the NGO UK Med, and they have already begun treating patients. This hospital will significantly enhance the medical response for civilians in Gaza. That brings us to the end of today's briefing. I will now take your questions in the chat. Please do remember to state your news outlet along with your question. Thank you.
Thank you. First question from David Clement at the News Forum. Does the PMO have any comment in regards to that the Palestinian Authority has announced a new cabinet?
I think if this new cabinet of the Palestinian Authority is going to continue the policy of pay for slay, a policy in which they pay the families of terrorists who have committed terrorism or murder or attempted terrorism, if that continues, then there is no change in the new cabinet and no reason for a new cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you. Question from Frederick Ager from Interplanetary Television. As of 2024, US presidential elections are making the support to Israel a partisan issue, and if Biden remains at the White House, the US won't be supporting Israel as unconditionally as it has done thus far. Is Israel ready to fight alone for its survival while being isolated internationally, diplomatically, and militarily in what analysts call a second war of independence that could last a year or probably even longer?
Thank you for the question. Obviously, I have no comment on U.S. elections or domestic policy. I will say that yes, Israel is prepared to go it alone if we need to, because this is a war for our very existence, and we will absolutely do everything to restore peace and security for our civilians. And yes, we will go it alone, but we do have support from our oldest friend, the United States, and we will continue to, speak with them and get their guidance on ways to move forward. But yes, if need be, Israel will go alone.
Thank you. Last question from Jean-Philippe Rubin from BIM. Israel wants to reach a long-term solution. Do you think that the Israeli diplomatic model of the Abraham agreements can be applied to other conflicts such as Haiti, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Armenia, Azerbaijan, or Ukraine?
I think, I can't comment on those regions specifically. I will say that the Abraham Accords was and is and continues to be a very successful agreement with the countries of the Abraham Accords. And we look forward here in Israel for the Abraham Accords to expand in the future. Once we have dealt with this terror army and have removed it from the way, I think voices of reason will have the opportunity to rise and the Abraham Accords will expand. As to whether the Abraham Accords model can be adapted for other regions, I'm sure there are things that could be used for other regions. I'm not familiar with those exact conflicts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was the last question.
Thank you all for joining us. Join us again next week on Monday.
Thanks for watching. Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and hit subscribe to stay updated with our latest content. Until next time, stay informed and inspired. This is Dejobnik signing off.